Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the Hilda Character Series. In this one, we're gonna be designing Hilda's body, from her sweater and scarf to her skirt, arms, hands, legs, and boots. Stick around and let's get started. First, I hold down the Shift key and select all the head-related layers. Then, by pressing the Alt key, I quickly hide them all in one go. Next, I create a new vector layer and name it Sweater. After that, I go to the Tools section, select the Draw Shape tool, and choose the rectangle shape to draw the sweater. Using the eyedropper tool, I pick Hilda's sweater color from the swatches panel and start drawing. Make sure that Auto Stroke and Autofill are checked. Hold on a second, you might be wondering why, even though I selected the fill color and stroke, the rectangle still appears invisible when I draw it. That's because, if you remember from the previous part, we masked Hilda's folder, but don't worry. I'll remove the mask in the next steps so we can see the shape properly. I select the Transform tool and head over to its settings, setting the X-axis to 0 so the shape moves to the center. Next, I grab the Select Points tool, select all the points of the shape, and click the Split button from the top settings. This adds a point in the center of each edge. Then, I adjust the points and use the Curvature tool to curve and smooth out the areas where needed. Holding down the Alt key, I scale the shape equally from both sides. Now, to unmask the sweater layer, I double-click on the sweater layer. I go to the Mask section, enable the Don't Mask This Layer option, and click OK. Now, I turn off the sweater layer and create a new vector layer. I name it Scarf Loop. I want to draw the scarf around Hilda's neck. The design is exactly like the sweater, and there's nothing special about it. Don't forget to always unmask any layer you design from now on. Now, I turn off the Scarf Loop layer and create a new vector layer. I name it Scarf Front. I want to draw the scarf in front of the sweater. I select the entire shape and use the Split tool to create points at the center of each edge. Then, I select the left and right edges of the scarf and split them again. I use the Add Point tool to connect these 2 points at the bottom of the scarf. Make sure that both the Auto Weld and Sharp Corner options are enabled. I use the Split tool to create points and form the bottom part of the scarf. This will make it more precise. Feel free to add points and connect them wherever you think it's needed. Now, I unmask the scarf front layer. If you notice, the bottom part of the scarf, where we created the lines, is not visible. I select the Create Shape tool, and in its settings, I activate only the stroke option. I set the stroke thickness to 2, select the corresponding lines, and click on Create Shape. Now, I create a new layer, and name it Skirt. The design process is exactly the same as the previous steps we've done. Now, I create a new vector layer and name it Inner Skirt. In this layer, we'll create the inner part of the skirt that is not visible. I do this with a simple circle and make its color slightly darker than the skirt color. Be careful, there's an important detail in this step. I need to match the points of the circle that shapes the inner skirt with the points of the outer skirt. The left and right points of the circle should exactly align with the left and right bottom points of the skirt. It's a simple task. All you need to do is select the bottom left point of the skirt, then copy the X and Y values. After that, paste the same X and Y values into the corresponding left point of the inner skirt circle. Then, do the same for the bottom right point of the skirt. Copy the X and Y values and paste them into the corresponding right point of the inner skirt circle. Also, we do the same for the middle point at the bottom of the inner skirt circle. Select the X and Y values of the middle bottom point of the outer skirt and paste them one by one into the corresponding middle bottom point of the inner skirt circle. There's just one thing to note here. We also need to copy the curvature value of the middle point of the outer skirt and paste it into the curvature value of the middle bottom point of the inner skirt circle so that everything aligns perfectly. I also unmask the inner skirt layer and place it behind the outer skirt layer. Now, let's move on to the arms and hands, which I'll create in separate layers. I create a new layer and name it right upper arm. I used circles to represent the joint intersections. For example, one circle is placed at the shoulder joint where it connects to the body, and another at the elbow joint where it connects to the lower arm. Then, I connected these circles using a rectangle shape. I place the circle in its correct position, then remove it from mask mode. Next, using the Add Point tool and disabling the Sharp Corner option, I draw the diameter of the circle. After that, I select the diameter with the Selection tool and use the Split tool to create the center point of the circle. Then, I create a rectangle and use the Hide Edge tool to hide the top and bottom edges of the rectangle. After that, I use the Split tool to add a point to the middle of the top and bottom edges of the rectangle. I use the Selection tool to select the entire circle, then I make a copy of it and place the new circle at the intersection point of the upper and lower arm. Now we need to do something similar to what we did with the inner and outer skirts. I need to place the top and bottom points of the rectangle exactly on the upper and lower diameters of the circle. So, I copy the X and Y values of the corresponding points from the circle's diameter one by one, and then paste them into the corresponding points of the rectangle, ensuring that the rectangle is positioned exactly in the correct place. To ensure the outline of the second circle isn't visible, I move this circle beneath the rectangle. To do this, I select the second circle using the Shape Selection tool, and then by pressing the down arrow key, I move it below the rectangle layer. Now, I create a new layer called Right Lower Arm. Then, I go to the upper arm layer, copy the second circle, and paste it into the lower arm layer. It seems the copy didn't work properly, so I redraw its diameter and center point. Now, I create a rectangle and align the top edge points of the rectangle with the circle, just like I did for the upper arm. The difference here is that I don't need a second circle for the wrist, and I adjust the bottom edge points of the rectangle to reach the cuff of the sleeve. I use the Add Point tool to draw the character's cuff. Then select the cuff with the Create Shape tool. I enable the Both option to apply the desired color and click the Create Shape button. Using the Hide Edge tool, I reveal the hidden edges of the cuff. I select the lower arm circle using the Select Shape tool and turn off its fill and stroke. Now, to create the left arms, I first duplicate the right upper arm layer and rename it to Left Upper Arm. Then, using the Transform tool, I select the entire upper arm, click the Flip Horizontal button in the top settings, and set its X value to negative. I repeat the same steps for the lower arm as well. There's also another method for creating symmetry, which I'll explain later. Alright, let's move on to the hands. Here, I provided 3 hand models as references. You can take screenshots of them and import them into Moho as reference images. What we're going to do is design these 3 hands and then use Moho's layer switch feature to switch between the hands. Let's get started. Now, I go into the reference folder. Then, from the image section, I import the hand references into Moho. I scale them down a bit. Then double-click on the layer and set its opacity to 20%. Next, I go to the Hilda folder and create a new vector layer, naming it right hand, back. Make sure to remove the layer from the mask mode. After that, I set the stroke and hand color and start drawing the back hand using the Add Point tool. Wherever needed, I use the curvature tool to add curves. Once the shape is ready, I select the Create Shape tool, select the hand, check the Both option, and click on Create Shape. Now, I duplicate the right hand back layer and rename it to right hand palm. I select the hand with the Transform tool, position it correctly, and then flip it horizontally. Next, using the Add Point tool, I draw the palm lines. After that, I use the Create Shape tool, select only the stroke option, and click on Create Shape to add the stroke. Finally, I adjust the thickness using the Line Width tool. Now, I duplicate the right hand palm layer and name it Right Hand Fist. I use it as a base to design the fist. Using the Select Point tool, I remove the unnecessary points and shape the correct form of the clenched hand. Then, with a few circle shapes, I create the curled fingers of the fist. To place one finger under the other, I select it with the Select Shape tool and press the down arrow key once. Now, I select the 3 hand layers I created by holding down the Shift key and go to the New Layers section, then choose Group with Selection to group all 3 layers together. I double-click on the created group and from the Masking section, I select Hide All and click OK. The right hand back layer is still in the mask, so I double-click on the layer and from the Mask section, I choose Don't Mask this layer and click OK. Now, I align all 3 hand layers on top of each other so that the wrists of all 3 hands match up. I name the group Right Hand. I right-click on the right hand group and choose Convert to Switch to create a switch group for the hands. I can go to the window menu, and by selecting the switch selection option, I can switch between the hands. I set the hand to right hand back mode. I select the Set Origin tool from the Layer Tool section, and set the origin of the hand group at the wrist. Then, using the Transform Layer tool, I position the hand group correctly. I move the hand group under the lower arm layer. Now, I duplicate this right hand switch layer group and rename the group to left hand. I also rename the individual layers of the left hand accordingly. I move this group under the corresponding lower arm layer. Using the Transform Layer tool and holding down the Shift key, I reposition it. In the settings, I click on Flip Horizontally and set the layer angle to negative so it mirrors the right hand and position it correctly. Now let's move on to designing the legs, which is exactly like designing the arms and doesn't have any special points. Just make sure to remove the layers you create from the mask. Carefully watch these steps as I create the right upper and lower legs. Now let's move on to the boots. I'll create a layer for the right boot. Take it out of masking mode. Set its color. And use the rectangle shape. Then, by adding points with the Add Point tool and creating necessary curves with the Curvature tool, I'll design the boot. Now, I'll create a new layer named right boot cover and take it out of masking mode. I want to design the front part of the boot, where the character's foot goes in, using a rectangle shape. I'll hide the extra edges with the Hide Edge tool. Then, I'll move the right boot layer behind the right upper leg layer to place it correctly. Now, I'll select all the layers related to the boot and leg by holding down the Shift key and clicking the duplicate icon. Then, I'll drag the selected layers and place them behind the right boot layer. Next, I'll go to the Layer Tools section, select Transform Layer, and click the Flip Layer Horizontally option from the settings above to mirror the layers to the opposite side. This is another method for mirroring. Just remember to rename the mirrored layers. Alright, that's it for designing the lower body. Now let's organize the layer order. Arrange the layers according to this reference image, and we're all done. Alright. That's a wrap for part 2 of the character design tutorial. In this one, we went through designing the body, from the sweater, scarf, and skirt to the arms, hands, legs, and boots. Hope it was helpful. I put a lot of effort into making these videos, so make sure to practice, and if you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'd love to help out. If you enjoyed this, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, so you don't miss the next parts. Stay creative, and catch you in the next one.